wide variety of folks. All right. Hello, everyone. We will get started in about 45 seconds. I'm Dr. Joel Domingo, your moderator for this session on resilience and therapeutic change here at the Nexus 2025 Interdisciplinary Conference. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning to some of you, since this is around the world. Just to let you know, we are also streaming on YouTube, so please feel free to stream accordingly and watch the recording accordingly as well. Each presenter will have 15 minutes to present, after which time we will have a Q&A session for the presenters. Some of the presentations will be video, so I want to thank ahead of time the technology team and production team for queuing those up for us. As it stands, I have 35 minutes after the hour. Welcome once again to the Nexus 2025 Interdisciplinary Conference. I'm your moderator for this session and one of the folks on the production team for this, Dr. Joel Domingo, and this is session 4, Resilience and Therapeutic Change. We have a lot of great presenters here, starting with this session titled From Ancient Indian Tradition to Modern Psychotherapy, Embodied Practices for Menopause and Mental Health. So, presenter, Rosalind Rye, please take it away.
Thanks, Dr. Domingo. So hello to everyone. I'm Rosalind Rye, and today, as Dr. Domingo shared, I'll be presenting on ancient Indian traditions and modern psychotherapy, and talking about some of the embodied practices that can support women through a midlife transition. So I'm really contextualizing some of those experiences unique to women, especially during menopause, and framing the theme of resilience around that. And so this presentation is going to explore how ancient wisdom traditions, particularly from India, can inform modern psychotherapeutic approaches to menopause, a topic that still remains underrepresented and often pathologized in mainstream psychology. I'll be drawing on research and ideas from some of my mentors in this field, Dr. Scott Hoy, Dr. Rebecca Thurston, and Dr. Anuradha from Christ University in Bangalore. And I also want to thank Dr. Jackie Linder and CityU for hosting this Nexus Global Conference. I feel grateful to be here, and I'm also a student of City University in the Master of Counseling Psychology program, the virtual campus in Alberta. So I'll overview what I'm hoping to get through today. I'll talk about a little bit about the background and significance around menopause and how there's a biopsychosocial transition happening during that time. I'll move into the problem statement, talk about some of the limitations and current frameworks around supporting women, and the theoretical lens around resilience being multidimensional, and also talk about the Eastern and Western perspectives and integrating them, and share some embodied and somatic approaches from India, and how there's evidence to support women going through menopause with those. I'll also talk about the implications for counseling and focusing on integrative and culturally attuned practices. So menopause is not just a biological event, it's a transformation of body identity and meaning. Women going through menopause are biologically going through a significant change, but there's an emotional, there's a social component as well. And so the question I was thinking of as I was preparing my presentation for this conference was how to define resilience in the context of women's midlife transitions. So I invite all of you to ponder on that and see how it's woven throughout my presentation, and I'll share my take on it. I also want to state that I'm a South Asian woman myself. I'm a trained yoga and breathwork teacher, and I just want to acknowledge that the teaching of yoga and the practices I'll share do come from India. And so it's especially effective for women that may already have this practice in their life or in their culture. So resilience is a dynamic resource that's essential for navigating many of the complexities of contemporary womanhood. And so that means that different modalities and understanding the interplay between the ever-changing experience of menopause is how resilience fits in. And so women that are taught skills and resources and given tools during this transition in different ways can increase their ability to cope with these changes because each day is very different during that experience. And so I've already mentioned that it's a psychosocial transition. So some of the changes are happening hormonally, and due to age, some women go through menopause earlier, some later. And there's lots of studies out there stating kind of the unique factors leading to the age that women go through this unique transition. And some of the common psychological experiences that are relevant to my work and my interest here is anxiety, mood changes, and sleep. So there's a lot of vasomotor symptoms happening, so hot flashes and changes in sleep, and night sweats as well. And that can really, on a physical level, be challenging, but also on an emotional and relational level. So for instance, imagine someone who hasn't slept all night and is getting chronically fatigued, the way they show up in their lives on a daily basis around the people at work, it can become really challenging. There's also evidence that there's social and cultural dimensions to the experience as well. There's a lot of stigma, silence, and medicalization around menopause. There is a shift happening. And this past August, I attended the APA conference in the United States. And there was a critical conversation that happened around the experience of menopause and more initiatives and more funding going towards research for women and women's health specifically. And especially in South Asian culture as well, there is a lot of stigma and shame and just not talking about the experience. There's a lack of understanding and underrepresentation in mainstream psychological research as well. So I'm particularly interested in this for my future capstone project as well, so that women can be better supported. So in some of my work and findings, I've noticed that there's dominant narratives around biomedical or individual coping models. And there is a pathologization of menopause instead of using it as something to help women grow and find strength throughout the experience. And so through that, they can feel more resilient and better adapt to the ever-changing symptoms and personal experiences they're going through. There's also limited integration of embodied relational and cultural perspectives, and there's a gap, therefore, in holistic integrative mental health frameworks. So if we look at resilience as multi-dimensional, helping women build resilience around their psychological health is really important. So focusing on coping, how to adapt to the changing experience, whether that's physically or in their relationships, and helping them with their emotional health as well. Teaching them embodied practices through somatic awareness, nervous system regulation is also going to support the resilience throughout that experience. And last but not least, the cultural lens is extremely important as well. So cultivating a collective meaning of what their unique experience is, whether that's a story from a narrative lens or within their culture, some of the stories that they tell, or perhaps shifting that and bringing them into connection with others. A sense of identity and exploring that is important as well. And seeing resilience as a process because it's dynamic, it's not a trait. So continuing to adapt to the experiences. And one teaching from yoga philosophy is it's called the kosha theory. And it states that women have, well, all humans have 5 bodies. So think of them as layers. So on the outermost layer, if you vision like circles, there's the food body. Then there's the health, the energy and the breath body, and then the mental and emotional body, and then the intellectual body. And at the core is the bliss body. So this theory states that we have to tend to each of those bodies. And if we're not feeding ourselves, we can't access the deeper layers of our being. And so I kind of want to use that lens as well to understand what women are going through. So physically, it's really important, but their emotions and their mental health, as well as the community and the teachings and wisdom in their culture, is important to understand and support. And then finally, trying to get to the root of maybe what makes them enter this blissful state so they can better cope and gain resiliency to experience better health and wellness through a very unique transition. So I'm really interested in continuing to learn about integrating the Eastern and Western perspectives. So in psychotherapy, we have modalities and techniques like CBT, mindfulness, emotional regulation. There's also narrative therapy and many others, as well as medicine and other practices that can really support women's health. But I want to make an argument that Eastern traditions like yoga and pranayama, which is the Sanskrit word for breath regulation and introspection through meditation, can be really supportive as well. Both Western and Eastern practices can really support emotional adaptability, grounded presence, and self-compassion. And I think it provides a more culturally responsive framework for many women, especially those from South Asian cultures. And so menopause is a whole body experience. As I've mentioned before, with the biopsychosocial, breath and movement can really help access points within the body to regulate and touch the different parts of the other bodies that I mentioned. So if, we're eating well and we're nourishing ourselves, then taking care of our energy body and breath body through physical movement, like a yoga practice and breath work, can really support the next layers that come, such as the mental health, the emotional health, and then the health within the community and connection to others. So pranayama, we know breath work activates the parasympathetic system and therefore reduces anxiety and hot flash intensity. And then yoga nidra is the yoga of sleep. There's lots of steps within it, and it is a very unique practice that can help women. And there's research on this that states that it can help reduce anxiety and pain in postmenopausal women. And there's also research by Dr. Thurston as stating that chronic challenges with sleep reduce cardiovascular health and put women at higher risk of heart attacks, specifically women going through menopause. And so I'd like to propose that bringing in yoga nidra can really help support women with their sleep and therefore help them live healthier and longer lives. And so embodiment also encourages nonverbal pathways of healing and resilience. And I know in modern psychotherapy that talking and exchanging that dialogue is really supportive as well, but also using the body as a tool to heal and cope with the challenges can offer a lot of resiliency as well. There's a lot of systemic barriers, as I've touched on earlier as well. There's a privileging of biomedical discourse, lack of culturally responsive care. A lot of South Asian women, women that I personally know as well, have trouble accessing care for menopause in a way that feels supportive. And over time, like menopause hasn't really been talked about in public and therapeutic spaces, but it is exciting to see this is coming up more in APA taking initiatives to support this group as well. And so, yeah, I think it's really important to integrate models of care as in therapy. We also know works really well, like making sure that we tailor our supports to clients So combining somatic and psychotherapeutic interventions encourage relational and community-based healing, and yoga really has cultivated that within its practice. Prioritizing lived experience and cultural narratives is also really important. And through meditation and a lot of the teachings in yogic philosophy, women can come to better connect with those deeper layers within them and understand their unique experience as they go through menopause. And I think as a future direction, there could be more support for training counselors and more embodied approaches to use techniques or exercises with their clients. And so bringing the concepts together and just summarizing what I've been talking about, resilience during menopause is a dynamic, embodied, and relational resource that helps women become more self-aware, develop or reconnect with their culture, and develop compassionate connection with themselves, their body, their mind, and others. And so there are implications for counseling psychology that are important to state. Reframing menopause as growth-oriented rather than pathological, using the body as a tool in therapy as well, and expanding accessibility to integrative supports. So there is a field of yoga therapy and even group therapy for women in women going through menopause can be really effective, and bringing in some of the embodied techniques can be supportive. And then I'll leave you with this question. What might change if counseling psychology viewed menopause as a site of resilience? Thank you everyone for listening. If you'd like to connect with me or chat, my email's there for you. And I appreciate CDU again for this opportunity.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rosalind, for bringing an integrative and holistic perspective to menopause. I appreciate it. All right, let's continue on with our next presenters. Um, Decolonizing Counselor Education, Integrating Multicultural Information Systems for Change by Drs. Kristen Curry and Dr. Alonzo Curry. We'll go ahead and cue this up here as we prepare for this presentation. Again, audience, please feel free to put your questions in the chat if you'd like. We will have time afterwards for questions of our presenters. And if our presenters are not here, you certainly can contact them via email. Their biographies are given to you as well. So as we cue this up, let me present a little bit of the abstract. This session invites counselor educators and professionals to critically examine the historical and systemic influences of colonization on counseling practices and education. So let's go ahead and our presenters ready to cue this up here. And I will turn on my timer to put that in the background.
Thank you. Can everyone see the PowerPoint?
Yes, we can. We can see it.
Wonderful.
We
So
do
thank
see
you
the
for,
notes. Sorry, Dr. Kerr, we do see your notes as well.
you do see my notes.
Yes.
Oh, geez. Okay, give me one moment here.
Okay, no worries. We'll go ahead and give you some time to prepare that. I'll continue on the abstract while you cue that up, etc. By exploring the intersection of decolonization and multicultural information systems, participants, us, will gain insights into how these frameworks can be applied to foster more inclusive and culturally responsive counseling practices. So with that, Dr. Curry, are you ready?
I am just, let me see here. My apologies.
No worries. And again,
How are we
audience,
doing now?
we still see it. We still see the menu bar on top, but if that's all right, you can.
It's going to have to be what it is. Okay.
Okay. Great. All right. Please take it away.
All right. Well, thank you all again for this opportunity for being able to present decolonizing counselor education and what this means when we're speaking on resilience, right? So we're looking at integrating multicultural information systems for change. So understanding the legacy of colonization in counseling. So colonization has deeply influenced counseling practices through Eurocentric ideology and education, often creating symptoms that marginalize non-Western perspectives. We're hearing a lot of this today, right, with our other presenters. And these historical influences, such as racial hierarchy, Eurocentric theories, and assimilation practices, they still permeate modern counseling techniques. We live in a time where this is never more present or relevant than in the present. And here in the United States, which is where we are based out of, we're seeing a lot of pushes from our current administration to move towards a more colonization embodied way of working in the counseling world. So we're here to kind of push against that just a little bit and let folks understand what it means to have colonization in counseling, how that impacts folks, and how we can change that and go into a more collective embodiment of counseling practices. We're impacting resilience and promoting resilience, not just in clients, but in our counselors and our counselor educators and our students. So this session invites you all to critically reflect on the role that colonization has played in shaping theoretical frameworks in counseling practices, both past and present. And we'll discuss how to recognize and challenge some of these influences to where we foster a more inclusive and equitable approach and in the interest of fostering resiliency. Now, the intersection of decolonization and counseling education. So in counseling education, we're looking at how we train the next generation of clinicians, right? Whether we're looking at counselors, we're looking at psychologists, we're looking at psychotherapists. There's a broad body of folks that fall under that counselor education banner. And so we talk about decolonization in counselor education. This is examining how colonial structures and ideologies have influenced both content and delivery of counseling services from start to finish, right? We're looking at how these structures and ideologies have influenced the curriculum that we are putting forward, the theoretical orientations that we are promoting and putting out into the world, and how we are actually teaching, how we're delivering those theories and thoughts into our students who then put it forward and deliver into their counseling practice. It really involves rethinking the dominance of Western practices and integrating diverse cultural perspectives. We're again hearing a lot of Western influence in counseling and clinical work here today, but recognizing what that means, right? Yes, without the Western influences, counseling may not exist. It's a great place to start, but it's also something that we have to actively work to change as we move forward and as our world changes and becomes more diverse, no matter where you live or where you are. So we're looking at integrating diverse cultural perspectives into the fabric of counselor education. Why would we look at that? Well, we're looking at this because I'm a counselor educator, and we are educating the next generation of counselors who go out and touch how many lives, and then those people go out and touch how many more lives. We want to make sure that we're doing that in a way that is culturally relevant to not just our clients, but to our counselors as well. And decolonizing counselor education also includes a commitment to fostering an environment that values diversity and challenges oppressive paradigms. Why do we do this? Well, to promote social justice, right? We want to promote social justice so that folks can feel welcome, they can feel heard, they can feel seen, and know that their needs are being met in a way that is culturally relevant to them, whether you're a student, an educator, or a client. And through this lens, we can transform counseling practices from top to bottom, and we can make a more equitable and relevant environment for our communities. We can foster resilience in our faculty, in our staff, in our students, in our clients as well, which ultimately fosters a very resilient, broader community who are the benefactors of these services. So some common multicultural information systems. When we think of multicultural information systems, oftentimes we think, what is that? It's such a broad term. Well, e-commerce platforms, that's a multicultural information system that supports multiple languages, currencies, and payment methods, as well as adapting user interface and product descriptions. So we're looking at how do we integrate systems and put them in place that are culturally relevant so that we're not just looking at this through a Eurocentric Western ideology, and here in the States, American English, US dollar type of base, right? We want to look at how e-commerce platforms are integrating multiple cultural considerations into their systems. A customer relationship management system, CRM. These are providing culturally sensitive communications and support to customers from diverse backgrounds. We have folks, how many times have you called into a credit card company and heard voices from other countries? Those folks also have different cultural needs. So we need to make sure that we are looking at how do we benefit that. That's a multicultural information system. How are we addressing what our staff needs, and how are we working with our staff to be able to address broader international interconnected community needs? Education systems. This is a big one for us here because we're talking about counselor education. So offering learning materials and assessments in multiple languages, not just the dominant language of where you're housed as an academic institution. Adapting the learning environment to different cultural learning styles. Here in the United States, this is during the current administration becoming a problem. It's becoming more difficult to do these things, but we're doing it. We're able to find ways to work around the current administration to help folks still feel that sense of community and to hopefully foster more resilience, even now more than ever, in the learning environment, to where they feel included and to where the cultural learning styles are addressed, acknowledged, and embraced and embodied. And then government websites. We have lots of question marks here because, again, we're currently in a time where this is more and more difficult, but providing information in multiple languages and ensuring that the content is culturally appropriate. This is really important, and this is part of multicultural information systems. So you can see how this multicultural information systems kind of weaves and threads throughout our everyday lives. So what is the role of multicultural information systems in counseling? Well, specifically, they are the frameworks that provide a broader understanding of cultural context, right? It embraces and embodies cultural differences. And why do we do that? Again, because it fosters resiliency. It fosters a strength in folks. It gives empowerment, a place to be. These systems are very instrumental in enhancing counselors' ability to navigate the complexities of diverse populations, as well as counselor educators to be able to navigate the complexities of diverse academic populations. And by integrating multicultural information systems into counseling education, we're moving beyond culturally irrelevant models. We are looking at bringing into practice more culturally relevant solutions that respect and celebrate diverse identities. And today we look at how to apply these systems to create a more responsive and inclusive counseling practice in the interest of fostering, again, resiliency. Dr. Curry, I'm going to hand it over to you.
The cultural concept framework is aimed at structuring traditional therapeutic models by integrating cultural, relevant, and scientific validated approaches. It encourages shifting from Eurocentric therapeutic models toward an inclusive practice that thrives in the community and creates cultural awareness and historical diversity. The first one we see right here is cultural competence and humanity. In the context of informational system, cultural competence and humility involves in recognizing the diverse cultural backgrounds and individuals in the communities while integrating systems with respect of the differences. Intersectionality. Intersectionality informs on the knowledge of individuals' existence and crossroads of multiple identities, gender, class, sexual orientation, and disabilities, and these overlapping factors that influence experience and needs. In the therapeutic models, informational system must capture and analyze the complex interwoven factors that contributes to individuals' experience, integrating intersectionality frameworks into the system design, allowing for more comprehensive and nuanced understanding of individual lives. Ecological system theory. Thank you. And it's important to understand that with individuals in the broader concept of their environment, therapeutic informational systems perspective engages in an approach that incorporates not just a individual, but the family, community, social structures, and other influences for their well-being, and utilizes data from various ecological layers, informing systems that can support creativity, therapeutic models that are responsive in a multifaceted environment, which individual lives promote well-being through interconnectedness and grounded intervention. We also see in community-centered and strength-based approaches where informational system prioritizes the strength and resources and resilience presented in the community rather than focusing solely on deficits. Therapeutic models enhanced by informational systems can shift toward leveraging community assets, supporting collective healing, and foster empowerment. By using technology to amplify the voice and needs of community, systems can tailor an intervention that are culturally relevant and in tune to the values and social dynamics that contributes to the community. Next slide. Trauma-informed care. Within informational systems, creating an environment that is sensitive to the experience of trauma survivors, including understanding the widespread and impact of trauma of individuals and within the communities, and integrating the awareness in every aspect of service delivery. Informational system is designed with a trauma-informed principle that can afford tools for data collection and analysts to help foster recognized trauma effects, provide appropriate response and support to avoid re-traumatization, ensuring cultural safety practices and embedding within the therapeutic model. Decolonization practices in informational systems changes the dismantlements of the dominance of Eurocentric and colonized paradigms where therapeutic models by incorporating an indigenous knowledge system where Western healing practices and alternative ways of knowing and knowledge inform systems and provide more inclusive representation within the framework. This approach helps shifts the power dynamics, centrally marginalized voices, and promote cultural affirming care that recognize the historical trauma and needs for healing within the decolonization context. And we must also focus on evidence-based cultural adaptation. Systems that integrate scientific validity while ensuring that they are contextually relevant and sensitive to cultural diversity. This approach recognizes the importance of adapting to therapeutic models to align with cultural norms, values, and beliefs while retaining integrity. Evidence-based models and methods that are effective, culturally reasoning, empowering communities with approved aspect and respect of historical context. The professional collective supports the shift in informational systems that is critical in the role of transformation of integrating diversity, evidence-based and cultural sensitive approaches, ensuring therapeutic practices are both effective for individual cultural identities and lived experience. The verbal mental application to tie all this conceptual framework together is a restructuring traditional therapeutic models that traditional models are often at the core of the framework of idea, where colonized approaches that don't fully respect the cultural diversity and historical context within these communities that affords resilience. The goal of the framework is to shift from these limited models to one that is culturally relevant, scientific, validating, and rooted in a broader understanding of the individual's identity and environment. So by tying all these elements together, the conceptual framework envisions a shift away from traditional one-size-fits-all therapeutic model, more toward an inclusive, community-focused, and conceptual awareness approach through informational systems that are essential in the process, enabling integration of culturally relevant data, guiding the adaptation of evidence-based practices, and supporting therapeutic models, honoring the individual's heritage, cultural, and social context.
And so I'm going to move quickly through these next slides. So the 5 principles of multiculturalism are diversity, harmony, equality, resource, and overcoming barriers. And what does this mean when we're talking about counselor integration into multicultural perspectives with the counselor education curriculum and fostering resilience? So to decolonize counselor education, we have to shift from a one-size-fits-all approach. And we have to focus on the lived experiences of both our students and the diverse communities that we serve. Multicultural perspectives can be embedded in counseling programs by diversifying reading materials, introducing global therapeutic models, and centering marginalized voices. Let's provide assignments. Let's get our students engaged. Let's get our counselors engaged. Let's build resiliency in them learning their own identities as well as learning the identities of others. And these changes empower counselors to effectively work with clients from all backgrounds, ensuring a more inclusive and respectful practice. It also encourages cross-cultural dynamics that we want to see embraced and embodied when we're considering working with populations different from our own. And so that's how we transform counselor supervision with decolonization practices, and we build culturally responsive counseling practices. So I want to thank you all for your time. I know we're out of time, and I look forward to hearing from you all in the Q&A later.
Great, thank you so much, and thank you for just continuing this conversation on decolonization. This is wonderful. Let's go on to our next presenter. It looks like Wendy Moore is here to present on echo grief theory, a trauma-informed lens for ORS and diagnostic invisibility. So I'll go ahead and let you queue up your presentation. Wendy, if you are ready.
Yeah, just let me, can you see everything okay?
We do not see we just see your video. We don't see your presentation yet.
Okay. Sorry.
No, that's okay. As you go ahead and queue that up, I'll just go ahead and read a little bit of the abstract to prep some folks.
Okay.
Olfactory reference syndrome, ORS, the persistent belief of emitting a foul body odor, remains under-recognized and often misdiagnosed as OCD, psychosis, or body dysmorphic disorder. With that, I'll turn this over to Wendy, to you, to go ahead and present. When you're ready.
Thank you very perfect. Thank you very much for the introduction. My name is Wendy Moore. I'm a master's level counseling psychology candidate from Kelowna, BC. And I'm presenting echo grief theory, a trauma-informed framework that explores how grief, shame, and neurobiology intersect in a misunderstood condition called olfactory reference syndrome, or ORS. So imagine living with a condition that shapes every social interaction, yet it's not in any clinician's manual. It isn't covered by insurance and is often mistaken for something else. Olfactory reference syndrome has existed in literature for over a century, formally acknowledged in 1971, but remains misdiagnosed. When clients are told they have OCD or psychosis, they disappear. EGT gives visibility back, linking the neuroscience of trauma to the experience of being unseen. So as I said, I'm introducing EGT as a trauma-integrated clinical framework that looks to explain shame-based sensory misinterpretations, particularly those resembling ORS. So rather than viewing these symptoms as delusional, EGT conceptualizes them as trauma condition interceptive echoes. Today, we'll look at how these echoes form, why they're often misdiagnosed, and how we can intervene more effectively.
Good afternoon. My name is Wendy Moore, and I'm a master's level counseling.
Sorry about that.
Presenting echo grief theory, a trauma-informed framework that explores how grief, shame.
My apologies. I don't know why it's doing my. Anyways, sorry about that. So let's give this composite case representation that really kind of goes with many different participants that I found in research. So in this case, we'll look at a 23-year-old reported early exposure to disturbing images between the ages of 8 and 10 and experiencing chronic shame after feeling he couldn't turn to an adult. He learned early to hide his distress through ritualized control, such as straightening objects and continually correcting homework he felt was not perfect. He was prescribed SSRIs throughout adolescence for a period of 12 years. After finding out the medication was no longer needed, he began to process of tapering off. He began believing a foul odor reminiscent of like rotting flesh was emanating from him. So after an arduous process of misdiagnosis and lack of accurate assessment due to clinical inexperience of others, he was provided a provisional diagnosis of ORS. This story encapsulates a long and often unsuccessful road for many who are misdiagnosed and simply looking for answers. So instead of challenging the belief, EGT invites us to explore the echo beneath the sensation, a learned emotional residue shaped by earlier experiences of shame, rejection, or relational threat.
This anecdotal case.
This became the central inquiry. So what if what appears as a delusion is actually an emotional memory echoing through the body? This question guided the development of EGT. It reframes the clinical presentation from pathology to unresolved trauma, shifting our focus from trying to disprove the client's experience to understanding what the body is trying to communicate.
This
EGT proposes that some physical or sensory symptoms, like the perception of odor in ORS, are neural echoes of unresolved grief and shame looping through dysregulated brain circuits. So echo grief theory rests on three interconnected pillars: trauma encoding, attachment disruption, and neurobiological looping. So trauma encoding refers to the somatic storage of unresolved emotional experiences. Attachment disruption describes early relational environments where vulnerability was met with shame, disgust, or dismissal, teaching the child that their internal experiences could not be safely shared. Neurobiological looping refers to a feedback cycle between the insula, amygdala, and prefrontal cortex, creating an internal signal that feels real, urgent, and personal. Healing requires listening to the body's echo. So EGT kind of fills five interrelated gaps. One is the lack of trauma-informed explanation for ORS, missed integration between neuroscience and experience, and no explanation for post-SSRI or S onset, an absence of a clinical model integrating parts work, so IFS, with sensory symptoms, and finally, a lack of compassionate, non-pathologizing lens. In early development, the nervous system forms templates for interpreting internal and external experiences. When emotional experiences like humiliation or exclusion occur repeatedly, the body encodes these threats through somatic memory rather than narrative memory. Later, ordinary sensations like sweat, tension, warmth activate these stored pathways. So the client believes they are sensing something wrong about themselves, when in reality, the body is replaying an unresolved emotional imprint. Many clients develop ritualized behaviors to regulate shame and restore a sense of control. These rituals can include excessive washing, checking, isolation, scent monitoring, temporarily reduce anxiety, but paradoxically reinforce the belief that something is wrong. These behaviors are not irrational. They are adaptive attempts at emotional regulation. In EGT, rituals are viewed as the nervous system's effort to reassert predictability when the echo becomes overwhelming. So our goal becomes retaining regulation rather than erasing rituals. So transforming the behavior from avoidance to embodied awareness. And these behaviors are not irrational. They are adaptive attempts at emotional regulation. So in EGT, rituals are viewed as the nervous system's effort to reassert predictability when the echo becomes overwhelming. SSRIs can be life-changing, yet over time, they may produce emotional blunting. For trauma-impacted clients, this blunting can mimic the emotional shutdown experienced in childhood. They may interpret the muted interoception as safety, reinforcing the idea that emotional activation is dangerous. This does not mean the medication is harmful. It means we must understand how chemical calm interacts with a history of emotional disconnection. The body eventually speaks what the mind cannot. A somatic echo is not a belief. It is a memory stored in the nervous system. The insula assigns meaning to internal sensations. The amygdala evaluates the threats, and the PSC tries to create a narrative. When the client perceives as a physical certainty, like that odor others can smell, is actually an emotional signal translated through the body. The body's remembering, not malfunctioning. Resilience isn't personality. It's a neural process. In this framework emerges from PSC regulation, insula recalibration, and dampened amygdala reactivity. By regulating the prefrontal cortex's control over the amygdala and insula, it creates a neurological braking system that allows the brain to slow emotional reactivity, restore interoceptive accuracy, and return the body to a state of safety and integration. So in practical terms, this means clients regain the capacity to tolerate emotion and reconnect socially. Relational work through modalities as IFS, EMDR, or attachment-focused approaches supports this recalibration by creating a new neural templates for safety. In therapy, this looks like helping clients feel safe enough to feel again, cultivating curiosity towards sensation rather than fear. This process is both neural and relational. The body rewires through safe connection. So practically, clinicians can assess beyond surface calm, ask how clients know they're okay, map somatic echoes, where in the body does the shame live, re-engage attachment systems, so really using relational interventions that target shame and emotional isolation, collaborate on medication awareness, so basically not pathologizing its use, normalize echo language, so to reduce shame and validating that the body can express grief through self-understanding. Now, EGT challenges conventional psychiatric frameworks that separate body and mind. EGT invites a paradigm shift from pathology to possibility, from delusion to echo, and from symptom management to relational integration. So instead of interrogating the symptom, we explore the emotional history beneath it. Instead of challenging the narrative, we attend to the body's signal. By reframing ORS and similar sensory distortions as adaptive signals, we move from labeling to listening, from managing symptoms to integrating meaning. This is a shift from what's wrong with you to what happened to you and how is your body trying to tell that story. There is no existing framework that explains how trauma-linked shame, emotional numbing, and neurobiological dysregulation can produce sensory misperceptions, such as ORS, without assuming delusion, psychosis, or primary OCD. So in closing, echo grief theory reframes complex sensory symptoms as meaningful expressions of unresolved emotional memory. It offers a compassionate, relational path forward, one that honors the body's attempt to communicate unmet needs. When we help clients reclaim the sensations they feared, we reopen pathways for emotion, connection, and resilience. Thank you for listening and for the work each of you do in rehumanizing the field of mental health. Thank you.
Wendy, thank you so much for this presentation, and
Welcome.
I'd never heard of this before, so thank you for introducing this to us. I appreciate that. All right, let's continue on with our next presenter, and this presentation is on the alchemy of love, a multidimensional lens for spiritual and existential resilience. And Niluka is coming to us from Sri Lanka, as I understand. I'll give her some time to queue up the slides. Once again, I invite you all to put your questions in the chat should you have questions during the presentation, but we also will have a Q&A afterwards for our presenters here. If the presenter is not here via video as well, you are more than welcome to send them an email or contact them at your leisure. So with that, Niluka, I hope I'm pronouncing that name right. I apologize if
Yes.
I'm not. I
Yes,
will
you
turn it
pronounce
over
it
to you
right.
if you are ready.
Yes.
All right, we'll go ahead and give you the floor. We still see your headings on there.
Can you
you
see
want-
my slides?
we see the slides. There we go.
Okay.
All right, very good. All right,
Okay.
please take it away as soon as you're ready.
Thank you. Okay. Good morning, distinguished scholars, colleagues, and participants. It is an honor to present my work titled The Alchemy of Love, a multidimensional lens for spiritual and existential resilience. So let me begin with a reflective question that shaped this entire study. In an era of ecological collapse, conflict, and psychological distress, how do we sustain the human spirit? That is my question. So today, the world is facing not just political or environmental crisis, but what I call a crisis of human heart. So we are witnessing climate change, war, rising loneliness, digital alienation, and a profound decline in mental health. So these conditions are not merely external, they shape the way we feel, we connect, and make meaning. So traditional models of resilience have given us valuable tools, cognitive reframing, behavior strategies, and structural support. Yet, they often means to endure. They often actually miss a deeper layer. What is it? The spiritual and affective dimension of what it means to endure, evolve, and rise again. So this presentation is an invitation to look beyond coping and enter the realm of transformational resilience, a resilience rooted in love. Across cultures and epochs, human beings have turned to something profound in some times of suffering, right? Something larger than emotions, larger than coping, larger than survival. So they turned towards love, not only romantic love, not conditional love, but the kind of love that Viktor Frankl observed in concentration camps in his book, Man's Search for Meaning. The love that gives meaning, the love makes suffering bearable, and that transforms despair into path of awakening. So in today's hyper-mechanist, fast-paced, emotionally fragmented world, this deeper form of love is fading from our conversations. We speak about productivity, efficiency, and adaptation, but not about inner wholeness, right? Moral imagination or collective healing. So this study argues that love is not just a soft variable, it is a multi-dimensional existential force, a psychological, spiritual, and relational energy that strengthens both the inner world of the individual and the shared world of the collective. So the aim of this research is clear and urgent: to explore how love functions beyond emotions, how it becomes a transformative force that restores meaning, connection, and inner strength during adversity. So I look at love as a meaning-making force, a spiritual anchor, also a relational bridge, a psychological regulator, and as an ethical foundation for community resilience. So through this lens, love emerges not as a peripheral emotion, but as an alchemy of resilience, the energy that turns fear into strength, fragmentation into harmony, and suffering into awakening. So the theoretical foundation, at the heart of this study lies the Love Aura paradigm, a six-dimensional framework I developed to explain how love operates as a multidimensional construct in human flourishing and resilience. Love Aura stands for love, uniformity, virtue, openness, resilience, and acceptance. Love, the core affective foundation. Love is the emotional heartbeat of the human spirit, right? So it nurtures warmth, safety, connection, and psychological grounding. Research shows that love broadens awareness, as per Barbara Fredrickson's researches, and it expands emotional capacity and fosters psychological growth. So, love calms the nervous system, enhances empathy, and creates the inner environment need to transform suffering into clarity. So, it is the starting point of all healing. When it comes to uniformity, it's the shared humanity and inclusivity. Uniformity is the recognition that despite of our differences, we share a common human experience. It is the dissolving of egoic boundaries, what Martin Buber called the I-thou relationship. So uniformity creates communal bonds, bridging identities, cultures, and social divides. When communities recognize and share humanity, resilience becomes collective, not just individual. So, what is virtue? It's moral strength and integrity. Virtue brings ethical grounding into resilience. It teaches us to respond to adversity not with fear, revenge, or avoidance, but with moral clarity and compassion. Character strengths such as courage, forgiveness, humility, and integrity have been shown to buffer stress and promote psychological stability. Virtue transforms the way we interpret hardship as well. So, openness is repetitive to change, receptivity to change, and uncertainty. Openness is the willingness to feel, explore, and adapt. It is an existential posture that says, I do not know what tomorrow will bring, but I am willing to meet it with curiosity. So openness reduces psychological rigidity. It increases cognitive flexibility and makes space for new possibilities, new meanings, and new paths forwards. In terms of resilience in Lavora, resilience is not mere toughness, it is endurance with meaning, the ability to withstand difficulty while retaining hope, purpose, and direction. It increases psychological stability, emotional balance, and spiritual grounding. In terms of acceptance, inner peace and surrender. Acceptance is not resignation, it is the spiritual intelligence to recognize what cannot be changed and the emotional courage to embrace life as it unfolds. Acceptance brings inner peace, reduces resistance, and opens the door to transformation. So it turns life weight into life's wisdom. So the key findings are, across the theoretical synthesis and across cultural evidence, the findings converge around that one truth, that is, love transforms in individuals, love enhances self-acceptance, emotional balance, meaning-making, clarity in suffering, and spiritual depth. In communities, love nurtures compassion, trust, solidarity, cultural healing, social inclusion. Across cultures, from Buddhist compassion teachings to African Ubuntu, to South Asia spiritual traditions, to Western positive psychology, love consistently transforms. So, and suffering into growth, despair into hope, division into unity. What are the cross-cultural insights in this? In Sri Lanka, India, and many Asian contexts, love as compassion is embedded in spiritual practices. In African context, communal love is seen as Ubuntu, I am because we are. In Latin American cultures, love is tied in kinship, solidarity, and collective strength. In Western psychology, love appears through self-compassion, emotional intelligence, and positive emotion research. So different language, different symbols, same underlying truth, which is human beings heal through love. So what are the implications? The implications of this research are wide and transformative. For individuals, love provides psychological regulation, emotional grounding, and spiritual coherence. It helps people navigate uncertainty and find meaning in suffering. For communities, love transcends collective identity, reduces conflict, and builds trust. It supports reconciliation healing, and solidarity during crisis. For mental health and well-being, it integrates love-based practices such as compassion training, mindful presence, spiritual reflection, and relational warmth can significantly enhance resilience. And for global healing, as the world faces ecological, technological, and social crises, love emerges not as idealism, but as the missing paradigm for sustainable human flourishing. This is not abstract philosophy. This is practical, actionable psychological science. As I conclude, I return to the reflection that opens this talk. To heal the world, we must first awaken the love within. The Lavora paradigm shows us that love is not luxury. It is not a poetic ideal. It is not only merely an emotion. Love is a transformative, multidimensional force capable of sustaining the human spirit in times of profound uncertainty. So with this study, thank you very much for your attention. I couldn't introduce myself in the beginning. I'm Nilu Hettige. I'm a positive psychologist and a PhD candidate from University of Colombo. I'm in the mission of going around the world and spreading the message of universal love. So this forum is going to be a very useful background for me, and I hope the audience will embrace this idea. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I keep on thinking what the world needs now is love, sweet love, and your presentation. So thank you for this wonderful journey into this.
My pleasure.
All right, we'll continue on with our final presenter here, speaking on the Masni Resilience Coaching Model, MRCM, integrating Islamic heart-centered virtues with psychophysiological coherence, a conceptual framework. This is a video.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Masni binti Mustafa. I am recording from Malaysia. The reason being why I can't do the program online with everyone is because of the time difference. My time is actually 4 in the morning. So I don't think I'll be able to be fresh at 4 in the morning to do this session. So this is a recording and feel free to communicate with me later on. The topic for my presentation today is the Masni Resilience Coaching Model. In short form, we call it MRCM, integrating Islamic heart-centered virtues with psychophysiological coherence. It's actually a 100% conceptual framework that we have come out for the coaching model. So resilience is actually the capacity to prepare, withstand, and be able to face challenges or stresses that come into our life. And the model that we have currently do not actually put emphasis on the integration of heart focus practices. And what we're doing is basically we are integrating Islamic perspective on the heart or cult with HRV-based coherence. We are using the concept of HeartMath Institute breathing technique. So it's practically a values-aligned model that we are going to present today. So current resilience model underrepresent Islamic meaning framework and neglect heart-based coherence or regulation, which is practically creates a cultural or a mismatch between HRV-based mechanism of self-regulation. Then the reason why we are looking into this is because we want to show the importance of how regulating the heart and the mind would actually help to boost or to develop resilience. The 4 capacities or pillars underpinning this resilience model is self-awareness, self-regulation, self-efficacy, and self-transcendence. So self-awareness is actually the foundation of this model. The foundation of this model for us or for the client to actually develop the right mindset or strategies for action plans to move forward. So the model focuses on understanding one's strength, weaknesses, and emotions. So by gaining a deep understanding of oneself, individuals are better equipped to navigate challenges and make informed decisions. So this is achieved through exploration of the body, mind, and emotions using coaching tools and techniques. So the next one is self-regulation. It's actually denotes the capacity to effectively manage one's cognitive processes, effective states, and overt responses in a manner that is conducive to positive and advantageous outcome. So self-regulation involves nurturing emotions, intelligence, exercise self-control, and employ effective coping mechanism or strategies. So this capacity will actually empowers individuals to approach life challenges with tranquility and constructive thinking process. The next one is self-efficacy. Self-efficacy in this context involves the exploration of heart and mind by the coachee or client regarding their personal belief. So they need to be aware of their abilities and how to effectively manage obstacles and achieve desired outcomes in the coaching session to be carried out and implement the decisions in the coaching session. So this construct is closely linked to self-assurance and resilience. And nurturing and promoting a sense of self-efficacy will make individuals more inclined to persevere when faced with obstacles and maintain optimistic perspective in any given situation. The final component or the final pillar is self-transcendence. It involve finding meaning and purpose in life beyond oneself. So it encourages individuals to connect with something greater than themselves, whether be it higher purpose, community, interest, or a cause. So by transcending individual concerns, individuals can gain broader perspective and find intrinsic motivation and inspiration to pursue whatever that they want to pursue for their life. So when we talk about Islamic virtues, where heart is concerned, we are looking at heart in the function of intention, patience, trust in God and remembrance, and of course to become excellent human being. So we are focusing on the area of the heart to promote resilience. So we are combining the signs of the heart plus the using of HRV plus coherence. So we're focusing on heart-focused breathing. So it's actually the client or the coachee will do breathing exercise using HeartMath Institute method around 5 to 6 minutes before the session and in the middle of the session and at the end of the session. So by gaining good HRV reading, the heart will become coherent and the heart will become at peace. And at the same time, it will regulate emotions and cognitive clarity. So this is the concept that we are using. Okay, based on Islamic perspective, the heart is described as a central system for understanding, guiding human life, condition directly affecting one's behavior and spiritual state. The honor of an individual, both in the eyes of humanity and God, is intrinsically linked to the condition of the heart. So this is based on research and articles written by the academics. So the alignment of the individual thoughts patterns with the heart intelligence is fundamental to peace, harmony, and well-being of the individual, societal, and global level. However, these are based on findings and research done by scholars, but we are basing it as well in the hadith and Quran. Example of a good hadith about heart is there is a piece of flesh in the body, it becomes good or reformed. The whole body becomes good, but if it gets spoiled, the whole body will get spoiled. It's based on a hadith. So in Quran also, there's among others, this is the one that I pick to present. The day whereon neither wealth nor sons will avail, except him who brings to Allah a clean heart. So the importance of the heart, it's very much stressed upon in the Quran. And when we look at science perspective, the heart is a muscle whose job is to pump 100,000 times a day to all organs of the body. So there are 4,000 sensory neurons relaying information to the brain from the heart. The heart emits an electrical field 60 times greater in amplitude than the activity in the brain, and an electromagnetic field 5,000 times stronger than that of the brain. So this is based on it's already a known fact by the Heart Research Institute. And based on research findings, the heart contains around 4,000 intrinsic cardiac neurons, which share similarities with the brain neurons. So these neurons communicate with the brain. So practically, there is a communication between the heart and the brain. So the heart actually sends signals to the brain. Thus, this signal will actually affect the function of human being. So we do things based on the signal from the heart to the brain. So having that in mind, what we want to propose is basically aligning or making heart and brain coherence important in decision making, because science and Islamic perspective have proven that these are the fundamentals that is very important in human life. So our process model is basically the trigger, coherence induction, inquiry, and values clarification. So we propose the model to actually focus on all these things, and strategy, design, actions, and support, reflection, and strengthen capacity. So our model will actually based on all these things to integrate the perspective and how to include coherence in coaching model. So the proposition that we did is basically coherence improves state regulation. The coherence and the alignment between the heart and the mind will improve state regulation and create awareness. By then, it will be regulated, and regulation will actually affect efficacy and will eventually meaning buffer stress. So whatever that we have in our mind and in our heart will actually soften or buffers the stress that we are facing in our life. So the protocol process is contracting intention, coherence induction, inquiry, where the coaching questions will be asked, and of course to plan strategies or action plans and support the measurement. Also, finally, we do reflection on ourselves, on the decisions that we make, because having a coherent breathing, coherent heart and mind communication, we will be able to reflect positively on all the decisions that we want to take. And this paper is not enough. Of course, it's based on previous research, it's based on Islamic perspective, it's based on science, but it has not done a total empirical test on this model. So this future research can be focusing on this, and it can use mixed method, HRV plus qualitative. I'm not sure about quantitative because we need to get an in-depth explanation from the client or the coachee. So qualitative will be the most recommended method to run research on this. And resilience is actually, as I mentioned earlier, is actually across the globe. It's about leadership, it's about education, it's about community applications. So a lot of research can be done in these areas by using the MRCM coaching. So instruments such as CD, RISC, resilience, general self-efficacy skills, emotional regulation questionnaires, HRV tools, coherence ratio, all can be used to measure the success of the model, the success or the failure of the model, because we have not done empirical research on this. So most probably we propose the design to be pre and post test to see the difference in terms of heart rate regulation as well as stress level in individuals. And the ethical boundaries is basically this model, and this paper is not about a religion or ritual. This is purely coherence as a skill training, coaching as a tool. Just integrating the understanding of the Islamic perspective does not mean it is about Islam. It is about everybody who has a heart, practically. And if there's any, this is not a psychiatric or psychological model. It's just a coaching model. So when you do your coaching, if you meet someone with psychological issues or psychiatric issues, they have to be referred to the experts, because we are not experts in psychology or psychiatric. We are just coaches, and we are using model to develop resilience. And of course, the consent is required from clients to run the HRV or even to create journals for the coaching process. And of course, when we do coaching, whatever model that we are using, respect is very important. Respect diversity in terms of race, religion, culture, everything must be, we must respect every individual. I do not show the model here, but if you are interested to know more about the model, I am willing to share it, provided you need to communicate with me. I can be contacted through LinkedIn. My email is masni.mustafa@gmail.com, and I also have my number there. You can communicate with me via WhatsApp. Of course, sometimes the response will be not fast because of the time difference as well. And sometimes when I'm busy, I don't look at my phone, but I will respond. And this is the IG that I've just created, Coaching with Masni. I am planning to share a lot of things about coaching model, coaching processes, coaching techniques, and competencies in the IG, but it's just recently created, so there's not many information there yet, but it will be utilized fully by me to share about coaching. Well, I guess that's all. I would like to say thank you to the organizers for having me in this conference, and I would like to thank you everyone who is listening, and thank you for those who have interest in my presentation. Feel free to communicate, and with that, I would say goodbye.
Wonderful. Thank you to each of our presenters, both via video and in person. I'm going to open it up for question and answer. And once again, please, if you want to put your question in the chat, please feel free to do so, as we shall monitor that. And I have a kickoff question, and I see some folks have raised their hand as well. I'll defer my question. I'll let the audience ask first, and then perhaps mine at the end. So it looks like we have a question from Dr. Linder. Dr. Linder, please go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Domingo. So my question, I have questions for everybody, but I'm going to start, because I know we're limited for time, with Doctors Kristen and Alonzo, specifically around the concept of decolonization. I thought your presentation was wonderful. I thought it was brave. It is my understanding. Now, I'm on the Canadian side of the border, but City University in Canada is a campus of City University in Seattle. So we are technically, not technically, we actually are an American university that has campuses around the world. So it is my understanding that in the current climate in the US, the phrase, keywords like diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI, et cetera, are defundable phrases. For example, if you have that on your website, you lose your government funding, or some variation on that theme. So I'm interested to know, how does one effectively implement decolonizing principles in times such as these?
That is a phenomenal question, one that we are actively working on sorting out. So it's come to the point that our legal team and our academic institutions, our legal teams are having to put together lists of language that are acceptable and unacceptable, right? And it's really sad that we're in that time in our lives that we don't have that academic freedom to be able to teach the things that we all live and know. So in this process, how do we decolonize counselor education? It's more challenging right now. This research that we did for this with this information was pre-current administration, so we had a little more freedom there. Now we're a little more restricted. So it's just a matter of reshaping language. So we can't use the word diversity, but we can use the word inclusion. Inclusion is not a hot button word, right? So we have to just rephrase the terms with the same thesaurus is our best friend right now in the American English language, being able to rephrase terms in a way that mean the same thing but are not those specific hot button words. Because you're absolutely correct. It is defundable. There are not just words, but just practices are going back in history and looking at what folks have done historically and how that's impacted agencies and organizations and pulling funding from those organizations as well. So they're not even looking at what's being done currently. They're looking at past as well, which is really impactful to a lot of programs and a lot of universities. I am fortunate enough to work in a university that we don't have that much difficulties worrying too much about the funding because we're a private institution and our funding is not heavily focused on grant monies or government monies. Not to say that it doesn't help us out and doesn't pay for part of our bills. So we have a little more academic freedom than some of our broader, bigger universities, especially like our state institutions and things like that. They have a harder time with this. So really practicing informational change and decolonizing counselor education is really just about getting our creative hats on and thinking, how can we rephrase these statements to have the same meaning, but not use these targeted words that the Attorney General's office has deemed as being problematic.
Yes, yes. But it's so interesting because Bell Hooks wrote that language is a place of struggle. But what I'm hearing from you is that language is also a zone of resistance if you leverage your language effectively. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Certainly. Thank you for your question.
And I have a follow-up question to that as well that is thematic of Dr. Linder's question. It does relate to decolonization, as it is a conceptually broad term that occurs along, multiple dimensions, whether that's something like indigenization to center indigeneity, or perhaps even liberation to free from dominion or domination or reclamation, taking back what was lost. I mean, so there are so many frames and it has to be contextualized. I'm curious, and this is not just the Currys, but all the presenters from your space. Can you share or comment on practices that you've seen that are successful? And my question is specific to diasporic communities. How do they negotiate resilience? And may I even add, demonstrate love and consider the heart while they engage in decolonization across transnational spaces? So again, example is an immigrant coming to a new space, negotiating and decolonizing, showing resilience, a new frame of reference. We saw in the yoga example, I think, rethinking our concepts of what makes the world up. Can you speak to that a little bit more?
Who's taking the question? Oh, you might want to pick somebody.
Okay, let's start with the Doctors Curry, and then we can go on to others who want to do that. Just keep that frame of decolonization.
That was a quite loaded question. I'm going to defer to my partner, Dr. Curry, and see what he would like to respond there, because it's a really big question.
It is a big question.
Well, that's the very reason why we created the framework. Of what we have here with cultural competences and humanity and intersectionality and ecological system theory and community centered based approaches and trauma informed care and decolonized practices, emphasizing evidence-based practices. This is fundamental, so individuals don't have to think about it. And when you understand the conceptual framework is based in hermeneutic phenomenology, you understand how deep we've dove into the concept of what is happening now in America and fostering now through other parts of the world. And this is not something we are not accustomed to in the United States. And that's one fundamental reason that you have to keep in consideration. This is not new.
Mm.
So just having a conceptual framework in order to not think about these new or assume nuances, we are better prepared to deal with any outcomes that treads on equality.
Absolutely. And referring of the wisdom of the community that helps bring some of these new ways of thinking into this space to create that effective change, I think is important as well. And you certainly have brought that within the counselor education space as well. And even thinking with the first presenter on menopause and just rethinking, taking it out of just the medical framework into a more holistic framework broadens our horizons as a whole. I see a question from Dr. Kariwo.
Okay, thank you very much. This is again back to decolonization with the Caris there. We've been conducting research on decolonizing the academy. It's very difficult, it's tough. And I'm wondering where in the counseling field, for example, all the instruments that you use, the language that you use is Western. So how are you going to move from that into indigenous tools, indigenous knowledges, so that you truly decolonize the counseling field?
Well, really quickly, just initially off top, this is where research comes into play, right? When we're looking at diverse perspectives in the research that comes in, so that we can have those tools, so that we can have those assessment tools and the formal theoretical orientations that are more culturally aligned and representative of the cultures that we serve. They don't fully exist at this point. They are changing. We are shifting in that direction, but we're not shifting quite quick enough as our population determines. But that is how we shift to a decolonization process. Is it starts with the research, right? It starts with how we approach these theoretical orientations, how we develop these orientations, and how we put them forward so that the next generation of counselors and counselor researchers and counselor educators can further that, right? They can take that baton and carry it forward. It's not something that happened overnight that got us to this point, and it's not something that's going to happen overnight that's going to get us away from it and move us toward a more collective perspective when we're thinking about cultural diversity and what this means and the multicultural competencies that we need here. And I heard someone say earlier, I believe it was Dr. Domingo using the term holistic. I would like to move away from using the word holistic even in this context, because that comes from a racial degrading history, right? And move more towards a collective type of language as opposed to a holistic term. Collective is much more embracing, it's much more welcoming, and embodies the spirit of what we're talking about here when we look at multicultural information systems and just multiculturalism in its context. We're looking at a collective acceptance, embracement, and embodiment of diversity and diverse cultures and things that are different from our own. So we want to look at that as a collective perspective, and that's how we have to approach these tools. No, many of our tools are Western focused and Western developed. However, we can start to shift that paradigm by doing the work to create those tools that are not Western focused, right? By looking at what it is that other cultures use. Some cultures don't even have language for mental health and behavioral health or counseling. They don't have language for that. It's not a thing. There's something else. So how do we address and acknowledge that? We have to meet folks where they are. So when we're talking about decolonizing counselor education, we have to start to decolonize our own practices within ourselves. Those ingrained cultural dominance that we have, especially here in the US, but in other countries as well. What that looks like is we have to start to decolonize ourselves so that we can start to decolonize our environments. And Dr. Craig,
can I add one more thing to that? For speaking toward language, utilizing the language is speaking to the countries who have the money to bring out other pockets of individuals who can change and bring forth that change, who don't have money $10,000 is not a lot of money in America, but it's a lot of money in other countries. So what we're trying to do is talk to the money sources and educate those individuals who have the money to invest in other countries to bring other voices to the table.
Mhm.
Great. Wonderful response. Dr. Linder, I know your hand was up, and then I saw Dr. Demike after.
Yes. So along these lines, as I was listening to this conversation about decolonizing, I started thinking about all of the anger, the rage that I see on TV around don't talk about DEI, don't talk about diversity. We're going to erase that. Like there's a new ethos going on. And it is the very opposite of what Ms. Naluka Tej presented on. It is not about an alchemy of love. We seem to be living in a time of great loathing and fury. So I want to invite Ms. Naluka Tej to answer the question in the context of times such as these. By what pathway do we move as a society, as any society? Because, you know, we seem to have a rise of despots everywhere you look. There is some angry person in charge of a country, blowing up their constitution, changing all the laws. So by what mechanism do we shift from such a hot, intense negative state more in the direction of this alchemy of love that you're describing? Like, how do we get from here to that place you're talking about?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, Jackie. Thank you so very much for the question. Actually, when we start loving others, I think we have to start loving ourselves first, because it's a very fast-paced, we are on a rat race, and we don't even have time to think of ourselves, and we are not kind to ourselves. So I think it has to begin from ourselves within. Start loving yourself. Then only, as Barbara Fredrickson describes in her broaden and build theory, when we have positive emotions, it goes upward spiral. And positive emotion wouldn't just come from nowhere. It has to be developed, and it has to, create as a habit over time. So I would suggest you start loving yourself, be kind to yourself, and have self-reflection. And what you do, what you say, and what are your aspirations, and how you have your day so far, and so on. And then it becomes easy to love others. And it's a paradigm shift of your mindset as well as reflection. And I think when taking positive psychology into this, gratitude will be a very good solution for that, because in this world we don't see much gratitude in people's hearts, and not genuine gratitude. It's not about just saying thank you. It's like coming from within to pay gratitude to something, someone, and whatever comes in your way. So if we make it as a habit, gratitude practice, gratitude journaling, and if you love yourself more, I think it will be easier for you to, love others in the world, and it will change the world. It is a habit to be developed, and a attitude to be, increased and developed as well.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Dr. Demike, I know you had a comment that you were going
Yeah.
to share.
Yeah, I will be quick. I have several questions for both Currys and Niluka, but I'll be very brief in the interest of time. I just want to ask Dr. Curry, over the last few years, there's been a series of books that were published in the States. I'm thinking of the linguist John McHorton, a Canadian scholar, The Diversity Delusion, and others that don't come to mind right away. But essentially, what was common about these books was that they were talking about woke anti-racism as having gone too far. And how much of that do you think has something to do with the backlash that's in America? That's for Dr. Curry. And then for Niluka, I'm it's a wonderful presentation. All of them were, but I'm also thinking about love in terms of how, for example, the ancient Greeks talked about love. Eros being, the image of Eros with the bow and arrow, that it can be potentially dangerous. Being in that kind of love overwhelms rationality, that it's transgressive, crosses boundaries, disrupts social order, and can be a mask for nefarious activities. Like this understanding of love compared to your understanding of love as redemptive. How do you see, is there a tension there or a productive tension?
Who would you like to go first? Me? Okay, I will go first. Far as the woke cause, you have to understand in America there's billionaires. There's two handfuls of billionaires who are pushing policies to control the mass media. So the concept of this woke has gone too far. There's some backlash from it. No, you have to understand that there's a 4 years cycle of who's ever is in office as presidents, and every American president is trying to acquire cash, even congressmen. Trump just made $4 billion on trying to equate money into these individual hands. Most billionaires in America are not actually billionaires. They're government contracted individuals. So this is just talking points. And the next 4 years, once Trump is removed, there'll be another concept of that's being pushed in order to get money in these billionaires' pockets. So the concept of being woke has not went nowhere. It's what individuals in America are doing are rediscovering themselves. The hate, the bigotry is being exposed, and we're gauging it into seeing to what capacity it is. And if you look at today from 50 years ago, the hate is not as much. You know what I mean? Like women couldn't vote 80 years ago. You know what I mean? Women can vote now. You know what I mean? So the atrocity that's being in play right now, people know this is about strictly money and finances into the billionaire pockets, and they're trying to make a world play on this wokeness and this attack on education. So we have to get our children back into the confounds of school, value education, and stay tuned to the contradictory statements that these politicians and individuals in these political powerhouses are playing upon our community.
Thank you.
Great. And there's a follow-up question, I believe, for Niluka. And I know Dr. Nubelkan has a question after that. Dr. Demeke,
Yes.
I think your question was two parts.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you very much for the question. I really appreciate that you asked the question. Actually, ancient Greeks, saw love in different ways, not as a single emotion. They saw it as a spectrum of forces shaping human life and relationships and character. So, as you mentioned, eros, like passionate, energetic love, and philia, friendship, compassionate and shared humanity, agape, like universal, compassionate, unconditional love. So the love that I'm talking about, it's universal. We know that when we look at the history, love can make us or break us. There has been, wars over love. And even now, what we experience in this current world is it's like being very greedy over things, over materialistic things, and we lose our emotions as humans. We sometimes, forget we are humans, and we are trying to achieve materialistic things. We are trying to, catch or fight over places, countries, about money. So I think we have to give prominence to our emotions as humans in the first place. So that is where this, where the stop comes for or this, aggressive part of love. I think self-love is going to be a good pathway for that as well. So if you want to make a stop for this aggressive world where we don't think of us as humans, we have to cultivate love within ourselves, and we have to start from very small circles with your family, with your workplace, and with your society, and with the nation, and with the world. Thank you.
That was great. I saw Dr. Nublakang, you had a question. It's outstanding, and then we'll wrap it up with Dr. Kariwa.
Hello, everybody. I just want to say I've just enjoyed this afternoon's session with such big ideas, and it's a great hope for the future, sort of, if all of your ideas can kind of come to life. And I really enjoyed Dr. Mandy Moore, and this is where my question is going, not to her, but the fact that she had sort of I had never heard of what she was talking about. I'm not a therapist or a clinician at all. So this world is very new to me. And, but she had put together a sort of a vignette, right, of a client who had experienced and what they experienced, etc. And that's sort of what I'm interested in. So this question is actually for Rosalind Rai, who I am now reached my half-century mark. So this transformation that she's talking about is happening or will happen soon, I believe. So my question to you is just like, could you provide a little vignette, or maybe what does your topic look like in practice? For someone like me, let's say. And I'd love sort of the context and background of it, but I'm really interested in that concrete detail of what does this look like?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And so as a student, I want to just highlight that I don't have all the answers, but based on the research that I've been reading and the interest I have in this topic and what I'm learning from other clinicians is that there isn't enough evidence stating if CBT or some of the psychotherapy modalities that we currently use in therapy are supportive for women going through menopause. We just don't know what the effectiveness is, but research is being done in universities in India on the use of yoga and breath work for women experiencing vasomotor symptoms, so helping reduce those night sweats and hot flashes, or having the ability to cope with it by regulating the state of the mind, which can then send a signal to the rest of the body physiologically. So I would definitely say that there is a growing body of evidence that supports just the use of yoga and breath work. And then in my attendance at the APA conference, the APA is starting more initiatives in this field of research and launching more money into research to find support. And one of the researchers' work that I'm particularly interested in is Dr. Rebecca Thurston. She's from the University of Pittsburgh, and she states that having different healthcare providers talk to each other, whether it's your doctor, naturopath, even if it's a therapist that you're seeing, to have them understand what your unique experience is, and see then like how they can support you in a unique way. So those are some of the things that I've been learning and I've been finding to be really great, I think, great perspectives to support women, because there is so much conversation sometimes around the physical symptoms as well. But I think it definitely does affect the different layers of our existence, like I was talking about with the kosha theory.
Thank you. That's really great. And I hope you're a student, as you said, and I hope you continue with this and actually practice it. There
you.
is a lot of us who could use your help. So
Yes, I'm very passionate about it. So thanks again for the opportunity to share this topic.
All right, we'll have one final question from the audience. I see Dr. Kariwa, your hand is up, and so we'll wrap up with this. Please go ahead.
Thank you. It's a follow-up again on Rai. You have in your presentation, the problem statement is including gap. I'm wondering how you're going to fill the gap when you're doing a literature review, basically.
Yeah, that's a good question. We recently just had our capstone orientation So to be frank, I haven't dug into it too much, but I'm definitely going to be looking at more studies and talking to more scholars that are passionate about this topic, and having their guidance as well, and just learning more about the topic to see what sort of supports can be out there, or what sort of future studies that we can do in the field. And so, like I mentioned, like CBT's effectiveness has not been measured. So maybe posing questions like that, or drawing from other studies that look at experiences that women are going through, and seeing if there could be some synthesis that I make around those findings.
Yes, what some students have done is to go around it by using what they identified as gaps. They make them as recommendations at the end of the paper. Well, I discovered all these gaps, and future research can actually fill these gaps, because I know technically when you're doing a desk study or a literature review, you can't really fill that gap. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Looks like based on my time, I was a little ahead of time. There is time for one more final question. We'll give that to
Thank you.
Dr. Linder.
Thank you, Dr. Domingo. I was sneaking in just before you wrapped up. This is actually a question for Wendy Moore. I'm very interested in the invisibleness of the diagnosis. And I'm curious, because it's not in the DSM, you touched on many clinical elements that are in the DSM, as well as very established concepts like attachment and so on. But this is not a DSM diagnosis. And we know in the field of mental health, if it's not in the big book, it doesn't actually exist. Nobody cares about it. And therefore, clients are marginalized. What do you see? Because the DSM is not going to be, the next version is not going to be published. Usually every 10 years, we get a new one. And you have to go through a lot of studies to be part of the DSM. So what is the pathway of inclusion? Speaking about decolonizing, speaking about people who are separated and marginalized. This whole population that you presented on, Wendy, is marginalized, clearly. What is the pathway of inclusion for them?
Is she still around?
I don't know if Wendy is still here.
Oh, no.
Oh,
But I
maybe
want
she
an answer to my question.
Dr. Linder, we'll go ahead
Well,
and
Jackie, she does have an
we'll give you
email,
the
I
privilege,
believe.
Dr. Linder, of electronically asking that via that medium.
Well, you're right. I do not see her. I do not
Uh,
see her in the
Good
list.
Good question, but there's no response.
But there's no response.
Or at least the
Okay,
response won't
well,
come right now. The response will come
okay.
at a later time. So,
Back to you, Dr. Domingo. I'll have to hold on
you.
to my hat then.
All
Jackie,
right.
I will add something for the conversation. Not for you to answer a question, but about the Lavora model. Just want to mention that it is underway, it's under development and in the process of validating. So after 1970 Rubin's love scale, there hasn't been any measurement or tool to measure love. Some people ask me, can we measure love? I would keep it as a question mark still, but we can, because we have a lot of measurements to measure happiness. Happiness is also an emotion, so why not love? So if the Lavorites model is going to be a success, so you can answer Jackie's and Demeke's questions in the future. So
Okay, we'll have to wait. Fair enough. We're just going to have to
Great.
wait a bit.
thank
All
you.
right. Well, as such, everybody, I want to thank the presenters for some wonderful topics and insight and just sharing their knowledge and experience with all of us. Wonderful session. I want to also thank you for the production team behind the scenes, running the slides, for your attendance, for the other members of the team. This wraps up the first day of our inaugural conference. Tomorrow we shall begin at 8 o'clock Mountain Time in the United States, which is 1500 hours Universal Time, or across the pond in Europe. And so please feel free to log in a little bit early. We shall be there. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow and the next day thereafter. Thank you all once again for your wonderful attendance at this in whatever role. Good night, good evening, and good morning to all of you.
Have a great day, evening, afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Domingo, for wonderful afternoon sessions for sessions 3 and 4. Take care, everybody.